It's time for the Onyx News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the Onyx News Podcast, Margie K. It's a classic edition of the Onyx News Radio Show with Margie K. Directly from the Onyx News Radio archives. This show may contain date-specific references and information. Enjoy the program.
My guest this evening is a very interesting gentleman. I've been speaking with him for about 2 years now. I found out that he did some investigation in a very interesting location in Missouri. Charles Teague is living in Memphis. He is retired. He has got just a fantastic story to tell us tonight. Welcome to the program, Charles.
Thank you.
You and I have talked several times, and you always have so much information on this Missouri Mystery Mound. Before we get started, why don't we tell people how to get to the photographs and your web pages on your Facebook page?
Facebook name is Charles Charlie Teague. That's spelled Teague. And when you friend me on the Facebook page, I will automatically put you in the Missouri Mystery Mound group page as soon as you friend me. And also, I think you could go to my information section and click on the photos. And when you click on the photos, there'll be a section there for all the photos of the Missouri Mystery Mound.
Folks, if you just Google Missouri Mystery Mound, there are a lot of websites that are already talking about this. And some of them have had interviews with Charles Teague and some photos. So if you just do that, you're going to find a lot of information there that way as well. So, Charlie, tell me about how you got involved in this.
Well, it's a very convoluted and interesting story. It started back about 2001, many years ago. I was listening to a coast-to-coast radio show with Art Bell, and that night he had a guest on by the name of Robert Ghostwolf, and he had Dannon Brinkley, which you may be familiar with Dannon, and they were talking about a hall of records located in Middle America. And Robert Ghostwolf was an Indian shaman who had been given the information to find this hall of records in Middle America, and he had went to it. Him and Dannon Brinkley had went down in a shaft under a mountain and had seen an underground city with artifacts and statues and treasures and everything, and he was telling the story of all the wonderful things that they had seen in this underground city, in this hall of records. And he wouldn't tell Art Bell any more information about it other than it was somewhere in Middle America. And I listened to the whole show, and I was just totally blown away. I said, oh, my goodness, a hall of records located in America, in Middle America? I said, I have got to find this place. And being from Memphis, being raised in Memphis, up and down the Mississippi River here, that's where there are so many different Indian mounds located in this area. So I just had to figure if it's in Middle America, it had to be close to the Indian mounds. So I decided to do some research, started looking into the Mississippi River cultures, Hopewell cultures, Indian mounds, the Adena people, looking at geographic maps and historical journals and books, trying to find some information on this. And I read Greg Little's book called People of the Web, which is about the mound builders. The first thing I came across, let me just tell a real short story, was a story of Hernando de Soto. You know, Hernando de Soto supposedly discovered the Mississippi River here at Memphis.
Yes.
And he was looking for the 7 golden cities of Cibola. And when he came to the Mississippi River here in Memphis near the Chickasaw Indian mounds, which are located on the bluff here at Mississippi and Memphis, and he couldn't get across and he wanted the Native Americans to help him, and he kidnapped the chief's daughter. Said he would give her back if they would help him get across the river. Well, they agreed to help Hernando de Soto cross the river, but there was another warring tribe on the other side of the Mississippi River, and they couldn't cross. So they took them upriver, built some rafts, they crossed the Mississippi River and went up into Arkansas and did a tour of Arkansas up around Pocahontas, Arkansas, up near the Missouri border. And then after that went down to Hot Springs and then down towards the Mississippi River and Hernando de Soto died there. When I was looking at the route he took, it was awful near the Missouri border. And so I started doing some investigating, and I found that there was a report that he had visited the New Madrid area and done some exploring up in there, and even all the way as far as Kansas while he was up in the northern Arkansas area. So I thought this was interesting. So I knew about New Madrid. I knew there was a large Indian mound in New Madrid, and I thought this might be the area possibly that I was looking for, because he was looking for a golden city. He was looking for treasure and gold, and I thought possibly this might be the area I should look in. But I didn't have very much information on that, other than the fact that it was around the New Madrid area. And so I did read a report that he had went over to the St. Francis River and had been going down the St. Francis River when he had stopped, went back east, then went back south, and then went back down in Arkansas. And I was wondering, why in the world did he stop right in the middle going down the river and go across plains back over towards New Madrid? So I thought that was interesting. I said, wonder what made him stop and make the detour back to Arkansas. So I was thinking that must be the area I'm looking for. But I really didn't have any information other than maybe southeast Missouri. So what I did, one of my hobbies is reverse speech analysis. So I took the show with Robert Ghostwolf, and I reverse speech analysis on it, and I found many clues about where this Hall of Records was. Clues like it's along the fault, Missouri, caves, fault lines, trees, lizards, all these different types of clues that told me this was where he was. But the only information that gave me was he was in the Ozarks somewhere in southeast Missouri, which is a very large area to look for. And I knew New Madrid might be the area I need to look for, but I was kind of stymied. I had nowhere to go.
Let's back up just a little bit and explain to people what reverse speech analysis is.
Okay, reverse speech analysis is basically it's the subconscious mind speaking. What it is, if you take normal speech, people, their conscious thoughts are presented to you in forward speech, but for some reason your subconscious thoughts can come out in reverse. I don't know the exact reason for this, but if you take someone's speech and then you put it in reverse, you will hear snippets of information, snippets of words, sometimes little paragraphs, sometimes sentences. And it's very interesting because it's a different tone. It's about 75% faster than forward speech. It has a very high pitch. It's very hard to understand. So you pretty much have to take a course in reverse speech to understand it. So I took several courses under David John Oates in reverse speech analysis, so I knew how to use it. So I got all these clues for doing the reverse speech, and I said, well, this is great. I know where he was. I just don't know how he got there, because he did say, one of the things he did say, that the Native American who took him to the site had blindfolded him, and he didn't know where it was. He just knew it was in Middle America. So all my clues were, I guess you would say, on-site clues, but no way to get there. I'm kind of stymied here. I said, man, I got all these clues. There's a Hall of Records somewhere in southeast Missouri. Don't have any way to get there. What the heck am I going to do? The MUFON director of Tennessee, Eddie Middleton, good friend of mine, called me up one day and said, look, Charles, William Henry, investigative mythologist, is giving a lecture here in Memphis, and would you like to go hear it? And I said, heck yeah, I'm always open. Let's go hear what Mr. Henry has to say. So we went over to the lecture, and William Henry was speaking on peacemakers through the ages, how they helped brought peace to the earth and how they were really important people. And he was talking about one particular peacemaker by the name of Colonel George Morgan, who actually is the unsung hero of the Revolutionary War. No one knows much about Colonel Morgan, but he was one of the reasons we won the war, very simply because he was a peacemaker. George Washington sent George Morgan to the Native American nations right at the beginning of the Revolutionary War to sign a pact with the Indian nations that they would not side with the English or the French against the colonists. And he got them to sign that treaty, so the Indian nations did not come into the Revolutionary War on the side of the British or the French. And basically we just had to fight the English. And thanks to George Morgan, we didn't have to fight on two different fronts. And he's one of the unsung heroes. He also was the man who told Thomas Jefferson about the betrayal during the Revolutionary War with Benedict Arnold. He was quite the character. But anyway, I enjoyed the lecture on Colonel Morgan, but when he told me one thing that just really got my attention, Margie, he goes, Colonel Morgan founded the town of New Madrid, Missouri. I go, whoa, right in the area I'm looking. And I said, oh, this is fascinating. And he said that Colonel Morgan had founded New Madrid, lived there about a year or so. He went back to Princeton, New Jersey, built an estate where the president of Princeton University's house is now, and lived on that estate until he formed his own estate called Organza, and lived like a millionaire the rest of his life. Well, from what I understand about Colonel Morgan, he was a land speculator, and he wasn't very good. And he lost his shirt in New Madrid. And he came back, and he was a millionaire when he came back from New Madrid after losing his shirt in New Madrid. And I'm going, where did this wealth come from? Where did all the money come from? I said, the man had no money. And the Continental Congress didn't have any money to pay him. They were completely broke. So I said, where did he get his money? And I'm thinking, this man was a peacemaker of the Indian nations. They loved him. I'm believing that when he went to New Madrid, the Indians gave him the secret to the Hall of Records. He took his wealth back and lived like a millionaire the rest of his life. And I got, wow, this is awesome. I've got to find out about him. So I went and got a book on George Morgan. The name of the book, if anyone likes to read it, is called George Morgan, Colony Builder, founder of New Madrid, Missouri. And it's a fascinating book. I think that Robert Savelle wrote it. And anyway, I read the book on George Morgan. Fascinating man. Many, many wondrous things he did. But after I read the book, it didn't help me any further in finding the Hall of Records. I go, well, this is nice, but that didn't help. I turned it on the last page, and there it was. It was George Morgan's family coat of arms. Unbelievable. They were like, I'm not sure. I'd have to look at it right now. Between 16 and 20 boxes on that coat of arms. I've never seen a coat of arms like this in my life. And I was looking at it. It had chevrons, it had griffins, it had all these stars, it had everything on it. And I'm looking at, wow, this is a fascinating coat of arms. But then suddenly, down in the left-hand corner, I noticed one of the boxes was not like any of the other boxes. It had no heraldry in it. It was just, I couldn't figure out. I had to look at it. It had two little boxes in it, offset boxes with X's through them, in what looked like a grid. What looks like something like maybe a river or something running through it. And I go, what? Is that a grid map on his coat of arms? I said, holy mackerel. So I'm looking at it, and I said, these two squares, X marks the spot. He encoded into his family coat of arms the location of the Missouri Mystery Man. I was blown away. I said, oh my goodness. So I said, wow. I have to find this place. So what I did, took me a couple of weeks. I went over to the University of Memphis and went to their map department and started going through all the grid maps for Missouri, Southeast Missouri. Let me tell you, literally hundreds of them. And I started going through them and trying to match up the two little boxes with something on the map. I said, if he put boxes on the map with his coat of arms, it's got to be on the map too, because he did map that area for the United States. And I finally was looking through. I finally came across a map that had the two boxes just like on his coat of arms, tilted at 45 degrees with a river running right through it. I'm about thinking, I said, oh my God, I found it. So I'm all excited. I'm jumping up and down. I tell Linda, I found it. Look. She goes, you know wives. She goes, that's nice. I said, no, we've got to go up there. We've got to go up there. And, she goes, what? It was July, 100 degrees. We had a van with no air. So I grabbed her, my daughter, and my dog, big German Shepherd dog, Al, and we head up to the middle of the Ozark forest in the middle of July with no air conditioning. The van breaks down in 100-degree weather. We have to change the tire around on the side of the road. The dog's yapping. The daughter's complaining. It was a mess, but we finally got to the area where I thought it was. And we camped out in the cabin that night, and I was standing on the river. I remember that night standing on the San Francisco River, looking across the river at the forest going, somewhere over there in that forest is a hidden hall of records, and I'm going to find it. So the next day, we go over, and we tramp through the swamp. My daughter starts complaining after about 45 minutes to an hour. My brother gets, everybody's real hot and not feeling good. So after about 45 minutes, we give up tramping through the swamp and head back. And I said, well, I'll have to make it on another trip. So I don't want to make these trips sound too long. What happened, I planned the second trip, only this time I called Ron Pastore. Now, Ron Pastore is a very interesting archaeologist. I was finding the area when I came back, wanted to take another trip up there and grid it out and go through it. But I didn't want to kind of go up there by myself. I wanted somebody that had a little professional expertise since I'm a pure amateur. And I noticed in Ancient American magazine, the gentleman, like I mentioned, Ron Pastore, had done a grid map of ancient sites across America, how they were laid out in pentagrams all the way across America, and the ancient sites were located at the tips in the center of the pentagrams. And I noticed that one of the tips was right near where the Missouri Mystery Mound was. So I called up Ron Pastore and told him what I was looking for and what I was doing. And he goes, you're in luck. He said, this weekend I'm going to be up at the Monsequat Cherokee Indian Nation visiting with them, and if you would like to join me up there, we'll go over and look for the mound together. So me and my brother went up there and went to the village and met with the nation. We had a real nice talk. They did some Indian ceremonies, and they even went on the internet and downloaded a picture of the mound from one of the sky views. And so the next day, William Joseph, and I think me and Ron and a couple other men went over to the area where we thought the mound was, the same place pretty much where me and my wife and daughter went. And we went bouncing through the swamp up and down. We found some Indian, I thought were Indian graves. Ron also agreed. He thought they were, and so did one of the Cherokee. And we were there, talking it over when, believe it or not, this was kind of strange. Two men in a big white truck pull up in fatigues. Ron had his camera, and Ron said, I'm filming this. So he was taking a film of it. They were kind of giving us kind of a weird look, and I walk up to the truck, and I said, can I help you guys? And they go, what exactly are y'all doing? I said, well, it's a national forest, and we're out here just exploring and walking around, looking at everything. And I said, is everything okay? They said, yeah, everything's okay. We just wanted to know what you guys were doing back here in the woods. And my first question to myself is how they even know we were there. We were back in the swamps. And I kind of glanced between the two gentlemen in fatigues. I noticed they had guns, big long shotguns and everything in between them. And I kind of said, are you guys hunting? They said, yeah, we're doing a little hunting. And after they had left, Ron looked at me and said, this is not even hunting season either. They're not doing hunting. So they were just checking on to see who we were and what we were doing. And I said, this is a national forest. I mean, it kind of freaked us out. And Ron was all upset. He wanted to get their phone numbers so he could call their supervisors and complain. I told him, no. I said, we'll go. Everything's fine. So we went back to exploring, and we didn't find anything on that trip other than a few Indian graves, but it could kind of freak us out a little bit. So we ended that trip, and with the next trip up, we met with the Monsequat Cherokee tribe again. And Joseph and Blue Otter and a few of the other Cherokee went with us for a third trip over there. And we went to a different mound because the last hill was not the one we were looking for. This was a little south of the actual Missouri Mystery Mound. And boy, this is so strange, Margie. You will not believe this. We had just stopped our van. We'd gotten out of the van. We were getting ready to march across the field to where the hill was. And two truckloads of men, front and back, crammed in, came driving up the road and stopped right beside. There must have been 20 guys in the two pickup trucks, and they had guns and rifles, and oh my God, we couldn't believe it. We didn't know what was going on. They said, we want to know what you guys are doing here.
Whoa.
And I go, well, this is the Mark Twain National Forest. It is, a forest. It is National Forest. And they said, yeah, but we don't like strangers back in here. And we go, and I said, look, I said, these are scouts. This is the Cherokee tribe that lives here in the forest. And we're out here doing some hiking and looking for rocks and maybe a few, stones and stuff. And that's all we're doing here. And they go, okay, we just want to make sure you guys are okay. And they drove off, and we go, what in the world? And Blue Otter, who lives there in the forest, he goes, somebody got some marijuana plants. Somebody got some illegal drug activity going on back here somewhere, because see, that's the only reason I can think of they would come out and bother us. But anyway, that was just...
That sounds very dangerous.
That's why I warned people about this. This is not a safe area. The next trip up, we took another trip up. This time it was just my brother, my friend Larry, Al the dog. I call him Al the dog because he was awesome. Big German Shepherd, unbelievable. So this time we went to a different hill. Actually, the hill we went to this time was the one that Ron Pastore pointed out to us and said, the next time you come up, you need to check this one over here. This looks big enough to actually be the hill you're looking for. So the next trip up, there were just three of us and the dog. We go up the top of this hill, about 400 feet high. We actually found the Missouri Mystery Mound. And we go to the top of it, and all around the top there is about a quarter of a mile circle ditch at the top, about 18 inches wide and 18 inches deep, going all the way around the top of it. We couldn't figure out what it was or why there was a circular path at the top of this hill. So we go on down to the bottom, and we just start walking down, and we come to a rock stream, which snakes through the forest. It's really beautiful, and it was really beautiful in the middle of the woods, and we look at it, and it's nice, but it didn't really tell us anything. So we look around a little bit, and we decide, well, we better get going because it's getting kind of late. So we walk down the hill down into a crevasse between the two hills. It's kind of like there's a wall on one side and the hills here. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things I was looking for, a wall that surrounds it. And we're walking down this, I guess you would call it a crevasse, and looking up at the side of the hills. And my brother kind of was looking up, and he said, hey, see those rocks up there on the side of the hill? And I said, yeah. He said, that looks like a lizard. I go, what? And so we go running. I mean, we just tripping and running up that hill to look at this rock. And we get up there, we look at it. It is a giant lizard head or snake. Never have to determine whether it's a lizard or a snake, but it's a serpent rock. Some sticking out of the side. You've seen the picture of it.
I just looked at it, and it is very strange.
And we go, whoa, what is this? And I said, and Fred said, it's a lizard head. It's a lizard head. And I said, and I didn't tell Fred that one of the reverse words that I had to find the Missouri Mystery Mound is I had to find the lizard. And when I first saw that clue, I got a lizard. Now I'm going to be running all the dadgum woods looking for a lizard. What in the world is that about? And then finally when he said it looks like a lizard, and my mind just exploded. I go, oh my God, we found it. It is absolutely gorgeous. One of the things, I don't know which picture you look at, I have several, but one shows that where the lizard head is sticking out from the cliffs of the Missouri Mystery Mound, the top of it, where you walk up to the head, comes to a point like an arrow. Just like an arrow, and at the end of the arrow tip is the head sticking out over the of the cliffs. It's absolutely gorgeous. One of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. But anyway, we're all excited now. We found that, so that was the end of that trip. And we made another trip. Only the next time up, we went and got the whole Montsequat Cherokee Nation almost to go with. We got like 20 people. We had the Medicine Man, Joe the Blue Otter, Walking Bear, the Chief, his son. We just had a whole bunch of people. And while we were there, we discovered 3 caves on the western side slope across the Missouri Mystery Mound. There were 3 caves. And one of the caves, when we went up the hill and found the cave, had a door frame in it. We thought that's a door frame. So we go in the door frame, and it was a small cave, but someone had bricked the inside of it, built a fireplace. There was one room that was bricked that was round like a kiva. And then there was another bricked in room, and it only went back about, 60 feet. It wasn't that big, but it was very interesting. We couldn't figure out why it was built. We had no idea at the time. We found out later. Now,
is this the same place where there's a door that looks like it's built in the side of the rock face?
Yes, ma'am. That's the entrance. So that's the cave.
Okay.
And so we explored that, and we found 2 other smaller caves, crawling caves. And one of the caves had an interesting looking. It looked like a painting on the ceiling. I couldn't figure out exactly what it was. And while we were there, I found a large rock, looked like it rolled down the hill, looked like a helmeted head of a warrior. It's about 8 foot long, and it was a very nice trip. The Native Americans did ceremonies in the circle and at the cave, and they told me that I'd found something very special. But
now,
anyway,
did the Native Americans know about this place?
Had no idea.
Okay,
No
and they
idea.
live in the area.
They live in the area, but they knew nothing about it. And later on, I don't want to skip around too much. So later on, the Corps Engineers are the people who run the forest there, and 2 of the forest rangers from the Corps Engineers. I took them over there and showed them the Lizardhead Rock and several other formations I'll talk about in a little bit. And I asked them if they knew anything about it, and they said they had no idea that it was even there. So apparently no one knew it was there, or at least that's what they told me. Not sure about that one. But anyway, so that was the end of that trip. We found the mounds, and now our thing was to try to find a way to get into it. So on our next trip up, we went into the small cave and looked at the painting on the ceiling, explored the caves, and looked at all the markings. There was about 5 or 10 etchings and markings outside the small cave on the wall, which I have up in my photo section. One was a bird, one was an owl. There was a couple of interesting, looks like ancient language markers. There was just the one was a dove. There was all kinds of markings on the outside of the small cave. So we wasn't quite sure what that was about. We thought maybe the Native Americans had made it. But, and that was it. And then the next trip up, I took my family, Evangeline, my wife and my daughter and my son and, my niece. We just did a family outing up there. And we, just explored and had a good time. What I started doing after this, I started going and looking at the aerial view of the Missouri Mystery Mound from the air, from the website that had aerial views. It was a Microsoft program, Microsoft map program, where you could go look at different areas. So I had found out through the Indian Nation where it was. So I started looking. This is fast. I started looking at the mound, Margie, from the air. Then I was looking at it and I said, "What is it about this mound that's just driving me nuts?" I couldn't figure it out. I kept looking at it. What is it about the mound? And I'm sitting and looking and go, "Wait a minute, that kind of looks like an animal face from the air." I said, almost like, and I looked at it, but it was not centered. It was like off-centered, like it was 2 faces together. So I started looking at one half of the face, then I started looking at the other half of the face, and I said, lo and behold, half of the mound from the air looks like a lion face. The other half looks like some sort of apish alien looking face. And I'm going, don't tell me this is similar to the face on Mars, that it's a half lion, half alien face on Earth, just like the face on Mars. I go, oh my God. So I said, what we have here is a zoanthropomorphic representation of a half lion, half ape. So what I did is I took the picture to a photo studio, had them split, and had them recombined into two images showing both faces. And I have them up on my, I may have sent you a picture of it, I'm not sure.
I have it. I'm looking at it right now, and it is strange looking.
It's like the lion is just so plain, the lion. The alien, monkey-looking other faces, I mean, both of them, it's very strange. But see, this is a 1/4 mile long, it's a 1/4 mile wide, and it's between 400 and 500 feet high. So this is an enormous, enormous hill that apparently sometime in the ancient past had been carved into two faces, a zoanthropomorphic representation of an alien creature and a lion, just like the face on Mars. I go, this is just too, it's strange. Because, Margie, think about it. I tell people this all the time. If you go to the Ozarks, there are 500,000 hills, Margie, in the Ozarks. They're
That's a lot.
And you look at every one of those hills from the air, you're not going to see anything. You're going to see a hill. But this one particular place that I was led to, when you look at it from the air, it's almost a face on Mars. Now, the odds of that is like what? I don't know. 10 to 1. I don't know. But it's pretty astronomical. Just to think about.
You just don't hear about this sort of thing every day. It's very strange.
I made another trip up, and this time we invited a MUFON, St. Louis MUFON lady by the name of Dr. Joanne Scarpellini. Are you familiar with her?
I know who she is, yes.
Okay, she went, Dr. Joanne Scarpellini went with us up to the Mound. We took her to the different grave sites. We also took her to what we discovered in the woods. My son discovered a concrete 5 by 5 foot block across from the Mound, about 100 feet back in the woods on the south side of the Missouri Mystery Mound, across the road in the woods. He found this 5 foot concrete block. So we, Dr. Scarpellini and us, we kind of looked underneath to see what we could see, and it went down. And it was like a few feet down, but we couldn't move the block, so we didn't do anything with it on that trip. But on the next trip, I brought a bunch of the kids with me, and we moved the block, and it was a shaft with rocks, a circled shaft with rocks outlining it going down. Went down about 8 feet, and it was stopped up with debris. And I put my boy Stephen on a rope. God, that was risky. Put him on the rope and lowered him down on the rope with something to punch a hole through the debris.
Oh,
and,
my.
Yeah, no, we were nuts. And he's down there poking. He was like 14, 15 at the time. So he's poking. He poked a hole through it. And then I brought him up and sent another boy down. He poked a hole, and it just went right through. And it went on down. We shined the flashlight. We couldn't see the bottom. So we said, this is some sort of shaft. Can't be a well, first of all, because they're in the middle of the woods. There's no foundations of houses or anything being there. And there's streams and rivers and everything all around. So we figured some sort of mine shaft that went straight down in the ground, that probably went up under the mountain where the Hall of Records is, which is under this mountain. So on the next trip, we decided, we came back, maybe we'd try to move it and maybe go down. But when we came up on the next trip, we had moved the block back on, but it was a little bit cracked. When we came back several weeks later, the block had been moved over and a brand new block had been put on top of it. And how anybody would know that we'd moved the block back in the woods way off the road, and then come back and build a brand new block to put over the top of it so he couldn't get in it.
So somebody was watching it.
Somebody was watching us.
Well, you know what? Race just sent me a little note and a link to a show that Jesse Ventura did on his show Conspiracy Theory. Have you seen this?
Yes, I have. It's about the underground caves in Missouri that they're stockpiling untold millions of tons of food and supplies and trucks and things.
Yes, that the Illuminati has designated the Missouri Ozarks as the area to be. This Lisa LaRue and Ozarks Cherokee has said that there are secrets about this area that have been known for many generations, and that there are underground caves and tunnels and underground water. So that makes it a perfect place to be, and that the Illuminati are descending on this area in the Ozarks. Some of the theories are that they're, getting ready for something big to happen.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm just saying, maybe we ought to take a look at this too, as a possibility for one of their places that they're getting ready.
It might, but this place, what's interesting about this place, Margie, is, it's, of all the different places, the ancient sites that you hear about across America, no one ever found or talked about this place. I mean, there's never been any indication that anything was ever here. And I found it, I don't know how I found it, to be honest with you. Even today I go, how in the world did I find this place? I mean, the odds of me finding it are like 1,000,000 to 1. So I don't know how I found it, but I did. And, I know how to get into the Hall of Records. I know exactly where to go in, but if I went up there and tried to go in, I probably would not come out of the woods. And I'll tell that story in a few minutes. But the next, right. Let me tell you about another trip we made up. The next trip we made up there, we discovered outside the cave on top of the rock. There's several big rocks there. One I have a picture of my son standing on. There was another rock next to it that had a square block underneath it that at one time may have had some writing on it. But on the top of that rock that kind of looks like a lizard, on the top of it there's an old carving, ancient carving of an eagle with its wings outspread. Beautiful carving. And the eagle is looking towards the caves to the west of the Missouri Mystery Mound. So if you go up to the site and you go through the pictures, you'll see that. We discovered that, and it's pretty fascinating. I got a message in April from a lady by the name of Angie Michael. It's spelled M-I-C-O-L, Angie Michael. She has her own satellite discoveries. She looks at ancient sites. You may have heard of her. You might want to have her on the show. She's very fascinating. But she wanted to look at the Missouri Mystery Mound, so I invited her up, and her father and Gary Dixon, who is a dowser, and his wife, and I brought the motley crew. That's the crew of teenagers that I always take with me. I don't know why, they seem to enjoy it. And we went up and started exploring the mound. And one of the interesting things about it is they found, Angie and Gary found a spot on the south bluffs of the Missouri Mystery Mound. I remember when they found it, they said, "You're not going to believe this. You won't believe what we found." And I went over and I looked, and it was covered up completely, and they just started digging it out. It was a rock platform sticking out from the south bluffs with rock hard ridges in it. All the ridges were equal spaced, and it looked like it had broken off from one piece had broken off from the south bluff, and there was another part still connected to the mound, and they started uncovering it. And I don't know if I sent you a picture of that, but when you see that, it's hard rock. It's beautiful.
I've looked at that several times, and it is extremely odd.
It is. It's the most unusual formation. We asked the Corps Engineers people about it, and they looked at it and they said, "We have no idea what could created this. You have to get some sort of geologist over to look at it." They did say that at one time, thousands and thousands of years ago, that it was undersea. They thought it might have been formed by some sort of sea wash or something 10,000 years ago or something when the seas were up high in the Ozark area. But we don't know what it was. To this day, we have no idea what created what it is. But it's just a very fascinating looking platform. We just keep discovering strange things on this small hill in the middle of the Ozarks. But after that, we discovered, the next thing we discovered was a man by the name of Dragon Walker. That's his name. from South Carolina sent me an email saying I've been looking at some of the pictures you've been posting and from the air, and he said one of them looks like a man. It was down. It's a southeast of the Missouri Mystery Mound, a couple hundred yards in a large field. And I looked at it and I said it does look like an effigy of a man holding some sort of round plate with an X through it. Looked like he has a trident on his chest, and it's just the strangest thing. It's like a quarter-mile long, and we looked at it. We said we got to check this out. So when I took the motley crew, we went up there and we went to it, and it's very strange. It's outlined by a path about 12 feet wide, going all around it in this field, and this path has rows of green plants, like 6 or 7 rows of green plants that go around this structure like a road. And it doesn't grow up there, just the plants grow there, and then the field's in the middle, and it creates this image. And we have no idea who built it, why it's still there, what it means, but there are many I put like 10 or 15 pictures of it in my photo section. We call it the effigy of man, because it had a round cross on it and possibly a trident. We didn't know if it was like a reference to Poseidon. We had no idea what it is, but we called it the effigy of man. One other thing I'd like to mention, if anyone goes up to the site, Margie, if you have a question, jump in there. I tend to run on a lot. One other thing that's very interesting, the coat of arms. Dragon Walker did an interpretation of the coat of arms. And then William Henry, are you familiar with William Henry, Margie?
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Okay. William's a friend of mine, and William did a analysis of Dragon Walker's analysis of the coat of arms. It's a very fascinating read. I will have to put it up for everybody to read. And basically it tells the story of the coat of arms about the Morgans and the Tree of Peace, which he's a peacemaker, and how three people went on an adventure across America, connecting the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. And these 3 people went to the Tree of Peace, the axis of love is what Will calls it, and they met 2 people who were without a country, is what they said, without a land. And he believed they met 2 of the Native Americans. And the 5 of them joined up looking for the lamb, which is one of the pictures on the coat of arms, the golden fleece or the treasure of Atlantis, or he's not sure which one it was. And these 3 people were seeking this treasure, and the 5 of them formed a band, a brotherhood, perseverance, fierceness, and dauntless courage. And they went and they fulfilled their dream and went to the land of love, is what he says. And that's the story. One fell in water, and at the end of their travels, they were rewarded with a new world, a tower of peace and pure love. So apparently, the coat of arms tells about this trip there with 3 other people and meeting up with the Native Americans and going to find the treasure and what they seeked. So I was looking at the picture from the air of what we call the effigy of man, and of course, looking up at the Missouri Mystery Mound, which is right above it or west of it. I noticed another image, and I kind of looked at it and I said, oh my God, it's a gray alien image of a head of a gray alien with the shoulders, with a hand extended with 3 fingers pointing towards the Missouri Mystery Mound. And then I looked over at I said, well, what is it pointing at? So I look over at the Missouri Mystery Mound, and there is a 5-pointed star on the Missouri Mystery Mound. And I said, okay, I have a gray alien pointing at a 5-pointed star on the Missouri Mystery Mound. I look at the fingers, the 3 fingers of the alien, and the 3 fingers are in the shape of a bird. So I guess his fingers are like a bird, and he's pointing towards the star like we're flying towards the 5-pointed star, which basically says to me this is an ET presence. I'm pointing to we're from the stars. We fly to the stars. and we're pointing at the Missouri Mystery Mound, and I'm going, there's an ET presence inside the Missouri Mystery Mound. How wild is this? So I backed the picture up a little bit. I can give you, and I will give you after the show, the coordinates, Margie K, if you want to give it to people where they can go look at these images themselves.
Okay.
And
this is on Google Earth, right?
Right. No, it's on Microsoft Maps.
Microsoft Maps, okay.
These images were taken probably 50, 60 years ago when the area was clear cut. There was no trees. The whole area had been clear cut or burned down. That's why you can see these images. Now, what you see are forests in green. You can still see most of the image kind of outlines, but now it's forests. When these pictures were taken, there was nothing there but the hills, which is
wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's the only reason you can see those images. They've got those old images up there for somebody to see. Me.
That was from the 60s?
I have no idea when these were taken, but it was when the area was clear cut. It must have been many, many years ago. Maybe after
that area, they sprayed DDT out there. The conservation department did, supposedly in an effort to kill off all the deciduous trees so that just the pines would grow.
Ah.
Now this is coming from a person who lived right next to that forest.
Wow.
At that time period, that was the story. But now I wonder.
They wanted to see all the images from the air.
That's what I'm thinking.
Unbelievable. But here's the interesting thing about it. When I looked at the star, when I expanded back up in the air just a little bit, I noticed that the star, now get this, Margie, that the alien was pointing at is in the middle of a fish. I go, okay, he's pointing to a star in the middle of the fish. What does a fish represent in astronomical terms?
Pisces.
Pisces. So it told me that well, thank you. I think that was it. It told me that he's pointing at a star from Pisces. I go, okay, that says he's coming from wherever Pisces is located up in the stars. He's pointing where they're from, and he's also pointing at the Missouri Mystery Mound. And I go, this is just unbelievable. Why is that star there? Why is he pointing at that particular star? And why that star on the Missouri Mystery Mound? So we go up. I said, we're going to find that. We go to that exact area to look for something that might have been there, would give us an indication. What was that? Was that an entrance? Was that a cave? So we go up there and we go, there's people living in the forest. So about a mile or so up the road from the mound, we go to this, houses, some people there. So I stop. Since I'm in the Ozarks, I honk my horn, I wait, I get out and stand there for a minute so they can see who I am, and then slowly walk up to the house. You just don't walk up to people's houses in the middle of the forest if you're smart. So I walk up to the house and I talk to the gentleman there who lived there all his life, and I ask him about, was there any caves down there on that road about a quarter mile by that hill? Was there any caves or anything here? He said, yes, there is. As a matter of fact, he says, we used to crawl in there when we were kids. It goes up under that hill down there. I said, did you go all the way to the end? He said, no, we never went all the way to the end. We were kind of scared. It kind of forked off inside, and we used to play in there as kids. And I said, could you show me where the entrance is? And the gentleman says, I'd be more than happy to show you where the entrance is, but the Corps of Engineers just plowed over it and built a road there about 6 months ago.
Really?
Thank you for building a road right over an entrance under the mountain. So, in other words, they had tore that area out where that entrance was and paved over it with a road. And when Angie, Michael, and them were there, we went down with Gary Dixon, who was a dowser, and we went walking along the road. I didn't tell him what we were looking for. I said, I'm looking for something along this road. Would you douse for me? So we walked down the road, and he dowsed, and right at the spot where that entrance was, he doused it right there. He said, there's something right here, something underneath this road. And the dowse went down. And that's when I told him that you just stopped at the exact place where there's an entrance that goes up under the mountain into the Missouri Mystery Mound. He go, oh my goodness. But the guy was, Gary Dixon, he died a few years ago, but he was a quite remarkable person. We tried to find another entrance there, but we couldn't. We didn't know, what we were going to do, but they were busy digging out the platform up on the slope, to take pictures of. It's fascinating. Me and Freddie, my brother, we decided, we're tired of digging, so we took off, went, east of the mound down around this little curve or road. Thought we'd, explore the hills back there a little bit, about 150 yards south of the mound. And we see a nice rock, wall up on the hill, so we climb up there and start looking around. We're right underneath it, and I get my camera out and say, Freddie, there's something about this. It's really weird. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to take some pictures. I took about 25, 30 pictures of it. Didn't have any idea what I was taking a picture of, Margie. I was just taking pictures. It was just something about it.
You're just using Freddie, your intuition.
I said, I don't know what this is, but I'm taking pictures. It's just strange, because there was a little pathway that run right under this wall about 70, 80 feet up the side of the hill that ran along this rock wall, like somebody had carved the wall right out of the side of the hill. And, I took pictures and I said, well, we'll get back to it later. And, so we went back and helped them with the mound. And, while we were exploring there, we also discovered, a large image of a gazelle in a field across, south of the mound. Right near where the alien was. We also discovered a kind of like a dog, something like a dog head, but we didn't really give that too much credence because we couldn't figure out what a dog would have to do with the mound. We already found stars and fishes and aliens. It was getting a little, to be honest with you, Margie, it was getting a little ridiculous.
Let me ask you something, Charles. How big are these images?
The image of the effigy of man was a quarter mile long and a quarter mile wide, about 200 feet wide. The image of the alien was maybe 30, 40 feet, about 30 feet. Not that big. Okay. Well, and the fish was the fish was about 70, 80, 90 feet long, but it's not there anymore. They tore that down. So the fish image isn't there. Yeah, these
remind me of the Nazca lines.
Right. These were just unbelievable images, but they weren't the giant, which we'll get into in a little bit. They weren't what I call the gigantic terraform hill valley images. That's the, others, that we'll get into in a few minutes. The owl, the dragons, and all the other things that drive me crazy. Even thinking about. But, some of the other things, one of the things we did discover, I want to point this out. I couldn't figure out exactly what's going on with the people that all this stuff is here. No one seems to be able to figure out, why they live in the forest. They don't know anything about it. And I'm coming to the conclusion that they probably do know something about it, and they probably have a religion around it. And I do believe, and this is my own supposition, that it is Druidic in nature. Many reasons for this. One of them is when we were exploring this, taking pictures of this hill, we noticed that there was a road right up from that went back in the woods, and there was a house back there. And on one of our trips, I think it was maybe the next trip or so, we decided to go back there and see if anybody lived there, We just walked back there and, talked to the people, because I had looked at some more aerial images, and in that, it's a little valley, and in that valley, Marge K., in that valley on the side of the slope is a giant head of a horse image, kind of like an Epona image of,
now when you say giant, how big are we talking there?
600 feet across.
That's giant.
And right at the temple of the horse head, all these images are up for people to see, and they'll be blown away. Right at the temple of the horse head is a circle. And as I call it, the circle, the temple of the horse. Playing words there, the temple of the horse. So Freddie and I went up to that temple of the horse, and it was a perfectly round area, that had been cleared out. Apparently a few years ago, a few bushes and things had grown up in a perfectly round area in the temple of the horse head. And, I started doing some research on Epona and Druidic, practices, and they have a lot to do with horses. And,
that was one of the images that's very astounding. And as we went the other way, I'm going to go ahead and talk about when I said the Druidic influence. I'm going to tell you one of the things that really keyed it in for me. If you go west of the Missouri Mystery Mound about 200 or 300 yards, there's a road. And we walked down that road to the end, to see what was down there. Because when I looked at this road from the air, on the, images from the air, it was a perfect snake. The road was a snake. Absolutely, without a doubt, beautiful image of a snake. And at the end of the snake, a forked tongue comes out of the snake. And the forked tongue splits and goes in two paths. One path circles around a large round area that looks like an egg. It's almost like the snake was staring at the egg. And the other path leads down into a grove of trees that are surrounded by a hill with a grove of trees. And from the air, the hills that surround the grove look like two snakes. So I have this image of a road of a beautiful serpent called the Serpent Road, with a forked tongue that goes out, surrounds an egg, and goes on down into a grove of trees. And to me, it looks like a ritualistic path for some sort of ceremonies. That's the only thing I can make of it.
Have you just looked at these from the air, or have you been to them in person?
I walked down the road all the way to I walked it, and looked as we went, walked down into the grove, looked at the trees surrounding the grove, looked at the cleared out area where we believe was, possibly an egg. And I walked and looked at the whole entire thing. Of everything that's on there, I've walked it and looked at it. I've been up the mound like 20 times, so I've walked. Now,
are these made out of rock or dirt or what?
The snake is a road. The snake is absolutely a road that curves around from the tail all the way up, and then at the head, it kind of goes into a head shape, and there's several big rocks there that maybe one's for your eye, and there's a couple that looks like bands that run across the road. It's like it has a band at the neck. And then at the end of this road, there's a path that goes down, and then the path splits. It goes one way, and then the path splits and goes the other way. So the forked tongue is actually a path that comes out of the tongue of the road of the serpent. Very fascinating, Margie. It made me think of some sort of Druidic ancient rituals that they would march down the serpent path. So when you look at the picture, you'll go, "Woo! I don't look at that. Lord have mercy." I hope people get an opportunity to look at all the photos.
Well, the Mayans were heavily into the serpents as well, and other cultures too. And you know, when you and we know the mound builders were up in this area. Have you do you think that it might possibly be a Mayan civilization?
Here's what after all these years, here's the conclusion I've come to. I think that this site is ancient beyond words. I think this is a source of energy. I think it's a vortex. I believe this area goes back, I believe different peoples have brought different treasures here for safekeeping. The Mayans, possibly, maybe even the Aztecs, Incas, the Native Americans, whoever came before them. I think this was a universal hall of records. I believe this is one of the hall of records. This is the one that's in the middle of the turtle, I guess you would call it, the middle of America. This is one of the hidden halls of records. And, it's protected. It's got an energy that protects it, keeps it underground, and there's no information hardly ever gets out about this place. I have personally tried, Margie, to interest many different archaeological groups and agencies to come explore the mound. Not a single one has shown one lick of interest in coming over and exploring this place. Not one.
That's unbelievable.
Not one. And I tell them what's there. They go, "Oh, that's nice." And I don't know if they don't believe me or what, but no one wants to come. I tried, but
that's very strange.
There's just so many strange things on this hill. There is a on the top of the mound that has the circle that runs around almost a quarter of a mile around the top of the mound. There's a tree. We have a picture of it, and on this tree is a face. The face has blue eyes. Don't tell me where the blue eye. I have no idea where the blue eyes came from. And it's an image, a half image of an alien, and a half image of a lion. It's the same exact image almost that the mound is. And we've looked at it. The picture's probably on the site there. You will see it. It's in the photo section. It's on the top of the hill. It's almost like the hill itself created a image through a tree. I don't understand, but there it is. You will see the picture, and you can judge for yourself when you see it.
Oh my goodness!
Now I want to get to one other thing now, and let's get into this. We've had some strain. I haven't talked about the terraformed images, which I will get into, but I want to talk about the wall. What I call the wall.
Oh yes, absolutely. I've seen that. That is weird.
Now, the wall is the one that Freddie and I, my brother and I, went and took pictures of and didn't think anything about it. And we went back and worked, helped Angie and then work on the platform, they call it. A couple of months later, there's a gentleman, Charles Stephen Long, who lives in Texas, who I sent pictures to. He was checking my site out and everything, and he called me on the phone because I had my phone number on there. He said, "Charles, this is Stephen Long. I live in Texas. And enjoying your pictures," he said, "the pictures you put up of the wall," I put the pictures up, thinking I just put pictures up, take pictures, put them on the website. He said, "Did you know that on that wall there is a 6-foot high carving of a skull?" I go, "Huh? A skull? No, I didn't know that." He said, "Go look at your pictures." So I said, okay. I went back and I pulled the pictures up and looked at them, and there it was, staring me right in the face, a 6-foot high skull. And I go, my God, how did I miss that? And matter of fact, I even have a picture, I sent you one on the email, of me standing right underneath it. And not even knowing it was there. And I go, wow. So when I saw the picture of the skull, I go, what else is on this wall? So I started looking at the skull, and right to the left of the skull is a profile of it looks like a Mayan chieftain or an Aztec or Mayan or Inca chieftain's profile picture of a king. And I go, wow, that is weird. And right below that is an inverted 6. So right there we have a skull, 6-foot skull, a Mayan chieftain profile, and below it a 6. I look off over to the right on the other side of the tree from the skull. There is a alien face carved out of the side of the wall, sticking out, staring at you. It's just an alien face. And right above the alien face is, it looks like a symbol that looks like the fingers that were on the alien ET that was pointing at the star on the mound. That symbol is right above the alien face. I don't know if you've seen that. Right.
Yes, and that is just incredible. I mean, the fact that they're in 2 places is amazing. I
know, and I go, oh my God. And then I looked off to the right, and over to the right there's a gray alien head at a 45-degree angle, about 3-4 feet from the alien head to the right of it. And then right above that, I don't want to go too fast, but right above that there is a carving, a bas-relief carving of an ancient god on the wall with some sort of hat on and a snake around his waist with a skull, and looks like he has a feather in his hat and some sort of ancient god carving up on the wall. And I go, well, that's interesting. And I find all these different images, and I go down to the, I guess you would call it the northern end of the wall, and I'm standing here looking at that, and I'm looking up on the moss-covered wall, and I see an image, And I go, my goodness, there's the planet Saturn. I go, what is the planet Saturn doing on this stone wall in the middle of the woods? So I'm looking at that, and I said, maybe it's not Saturn. I look at it, I said, yes, that's Saturn. Saturn, of course, is named, it's a planet that's the planet of lead, and which is kind of coincidental since that area of the Ozarks used to have one of the largest deposits of lead ores in the world.
Yes.
And so the planet Saturn is the planet of lead, the planet of Satan, I guess. I don't know what you want to call it. But there was the planet Saturn there on the wall. And then down right below that where I was standing, I looked over and I see the Eye of Horus. There on the wall, there's a carving of the eye of Isis, of Horus, of I don't know, Osiris, whichever eye you want to call it. A lot of people call it the Eye of Horus.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Had a great time.
And thank you to our listeners. This is Onyx News Radio. I'm your host, Margie Kay. Visit my website at margiekay.com. That's margiekay.com. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Onyx News Podcast with Margie Kay. Any rebroadcast or duplication of this program or its content without express written permission from Margie Kay is strictly prohibited. The Onyx News Podcast, in direct cooperation with the internet website margiekay.com.